Give some automatic thumbs up from the very start. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay. I think, maybe. Come on now. YouTube, I know you're out there.
There she goes.
Oh, yes, there's one. Let me get the other. And if I get this one in record time, it's going to be like roping a calf off a horse. Yeah, New Yorkers, and they're like, what in the hell is this guy talking about? Jesus
Hard.
Okay.
That sounds hard.
Roped and tied in 10 seconds. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brian Trippett. Welcome to the very first edition of Chattin On The Porch. This is a interview stream where I'm going to be talking to various people around the net who have all kinds of interesting stories to tell, insights to give, conversations to be had, and fun to be engaged in. And my very first guests for Chattin On The Porch are Daniel and Brently, the proprietors of Dangerous Rhetoric podcast. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Pretty good.
Doing well.
A little tired, but I'm caffeinated right now, so get this going. Yeah, we have a friend visiting from Florida, so we were like up late last night and drank a little bit.
Well, you know, a little is one thing, a lot is another thing, but that's all right.
Yeah,
indeed.
So how you guys doing? I mean, I have seen you guys posting stuff on Twitter. I've seen your live streams. I saw one last night. What are you guys up to these days?
Busy. We just had a episode with George Alexopoulos, who he's this like internet cartoonist, and he does these 4 panels that are really like just so based and popular and amazing. And he has a new GoFundMe that he just finished with Razorfist, who's this other YouTuber, and they're producing a comic book graphic novel. Really, it's going to be like 100 pages called Ghost of the Badlands, which is more of a revenge Western sort of tale, like a dark hero kind of thing. So I'm very excited for that. We had George on, and we were also talking about the importance of culture, content, graphic novels, animes, and video games, and how a lot of conservatives don't grok the value of those genres of content. You know, Matt Walsh famously sort of just thinks all anime is satanic and just sort of dismisses it and thinks people should go read their Bible without realizing that, you know, kids, you know, the next generation, even people in their 20s and 30s, everybody younger than him basically is really into this content. And there's definitely room for conservative content creators to generate, good stories in those milieus that will hopefully capture the interest and attention of young people and bring them in a little sooner. You know, I didn't really have a conservative streak until my mid-30s and COVID and all that stuff happened. So hopefully with, quality content that engages young people, we can bring them, and share the values of, traditional American conservative values a little sooner and make it more appealing. But who knows? We'll see.
It's not just entertainment mediums either. It's art in general, really. I find that people on the right tend to disregard the importance of it. And that's why you see the woke ideological left dominate art. They dominate the galleries, especially here in New York City. So it's not just things like film and anime and games and those sorts of things. It's art in general. And they put a lot of stock into that. They put a lot of money into it. They clearly see it as important. So I think, in regards to the quote unquote culture war, people on the right and conservatives and Republicans are very much shooting themselves in the foot by not leveraging that, in the fight.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, it frustrates me to no end to watch the left take over one different institution after another. I mean, education, the arts, debate in general, and words, which we'll get to what I'm referring to when we get into the main topic of the night. But yeah, I mean, I saw that Razorfist has got this thing going with George, and they hit their goal like almost in the first 24 hours. Blew it out actually.
Yeah, real quick. So, and they, I think they were originally going to do it in black and white, and then like, you know, he decided to do color, and they were originally only like going to do 50 pages, and he expanded it to 100. So it's I'm really excited to see it when it comes out. I'm a big fan of George's other manga. He has this like series called Mary Sue, which is like the tale of this like it's basically like an inverted Mary Sue archetype. So the Mary Sue archetype is like Miss Marvel, like Captain Marvel and Brie Larson's character in the Marvel series, where it's just you have this like female character who's just super powerful and amazing and just great at everything because wow, woman. And so he's taken that and sort of turned it on its head. She's like sort of like a really goofy, really dumb, incompetent female. Only like she's like, it's a little bit of like Vash the Stampede in that everybody's afraid when she comes around because she just tends to destroy everything in her attempt to help. So every time she has these super powered exosuits. And so the only thing that she has going is that she's overpowered basically. But she's just terrible at using the technology and causes all these problems everywhere she goes. And it's funny and really well drawn. And I encourage everybody, if you like science fiction and manga, to definitely check out that. George has them on his Etsy store. It's like Studio NJ, I think is what he calls it.
Yeah, we talked specifically about that series in the second time we had George
second episode with George.
Because we've had him on 3 times. He was actually one of our first, I think he was our first real big guest that we had on Dangerous Rhetoric when we first started, and that was like episode 16. Like no one knew who the hell we were at the time, and he's been on 3 times since then. So he's also a really funny guy, really humble in person, just really cool.
Super humble, super polite, definitely has a conscience.
No, he's a good one. He's one of the good guys.
Big fan of George.
Well, and you guys can speak to this maybe better than I can, but one thing I'm starting to notice, and there is it seems to me a genuine renaissance in arts, at least on the right. Now, not maybe as widespread yet as it could yet be, but you got the Critical Drinker. He's always doing something. You've got now Razor Fist with now, like, I know, one graphic novel, and now this collaborative effort with George. You've got Eric July, a.k.a. Young Rippa, out there with the Rippaverse. You've got Epic Mike, who's associated with G&G, and he's got something cooking all the time. It's starting to bubble, and I know you guys were encouraging it, and Daniel, I know you were tweeting it. I want Matt Walsh to debate George on this topic. And not for the sake of just being contrarian, like, oh, I want to see these two guys fight each other. No, this needs to be something that has to be hashed out. If the right, however you want to define that, is going to actually start turning this thing around as far as, you know, where we are culturally, we've got to engage as much as we can. I mean, I love the way that Eric July puts it. Get in where you fit in. That doesn't mean everybody's going to be able to do the same thing, but where they are and with the talents they've got, you know, do something. I mean, and, you know, you guys have got Dangerous Rhetoric. I'm trying to get, you know, this little old string and tin can operation started over here on my side of it.
It takes a long time to get ready.
It does.
Oh yeah.
Been since we started April 2021.
2021. So it's been 2 years.
So it's been 2 years. We just got, you know, recently I think we hit like 1,380 subs ish.
And we were just monetized like a couple weeks ago on YouTube.
Still having
congratulations, gentlemen.
How long that lasts, but it's still an accomplishment, so that's pretty cool.
Well, no, it is. It absolutely is. I mean, you know, by blood, sweat, and tears, you guys have built this thing. And how I came across you two was Carrie Smith. She had you on Deprogrammed one time. Y'all love that lady. She is just awesome.
And I think we did one like formal. I think we did a formal episode with her, and then we've appeared on the Kofefi break a few times.
A couple of times, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she does good. Yeah. She does wonderful little breakdowns, and I like her different shows for the week. She got a nice little pattern.
She's another one,
absolutely
one of the good ones. Genuine, you know, we've spent time with her in person as well, and she's a legitimately great person, and she really cares about the things she talks about, for sure. She's not just some take seller influencer person.
Her backstory is really interesting too, out of the LA talent management scene where everything is super woke,
disaffected liberal type. You know, she comes from that side, so she understands that mentality of why the woke think the way they do, because she was very immersed in all of that. So I think that's what attracts so many people to her and her show, is that she's been on both sides of the fence. So to see her, go from one side to the other, and now being, born again Christian and more conservative, all of those things, it gives her an interesting perspective to share with people.
Oh, absolutely. And she and I got into a brief conversation. We had the chance to meet once in Orlando, and to me, it's a very interesting time because all of a sudden it seems like there are different people from divergent backgrounds and different beliefs, and they're all coming together in a spot. Now, don't ask me to define what this spot is, but everybody's kind of getting there. I mean, Carrie Smith, Brandon Straka, Mikey Harlow, people from the left are now coming here. You got people from the cultural right. You've got free speech advocates, Chrissy Mayer, Gina Biscotti, Anthony Cumia. Everybody's kind of coming to the spot, and they're all kind of looking around at each other going, well, look, I know why I'm here, but what the heck are you doing here? And the other person's looking back going, I was about to ask you the exact same question, dude. And everybody's realizing, we agree on more stuff than we ever disagreed on. Why didn't we do this sooner? And I was like, I don't know, but let's just, let's lock arms here and fight, because if we don't, we're going to lose our culture. So.
I agree. And Carrie's show is a good example of that, because she has such a wide array of different guests that she brings on. And some of them, she disagrees with fundamentally on certain things, but it's finding that common ground. People like Buck Angel, we've had Buck on our show too. There are definitely fundamental things we disagree with Buck on, but there are other things that we're able to find that common ground, have a rational discussion, not, throw slurs at each other and all that.
Carrie, shout out to her mod, Pirate Tomsky, in the chat.
Hey, what's up, Pirate?
Yeah. Mr. Tomsky, a tip of the hat to you, sir. Good evening. Glad you're here. Glad everybody's here. Robert Lowry's in the house, who I do a live stream on Saturday mornings. It's more or less what I call that chill session. Everybody's been stressed out from the week. You haven't had a chance to catch up on the news. And man, Robert is just like there. He's like, when there's like nobody else in chat, he's like, hey man, how you doing? Like, oh, okay, I got somebody to talk to now. Great. So it's like, but yeah.
That it takes a while before you get consistent. I mean, even like
couple diehards,
we get like maybe like if we break double digits on our premieres, I'm like woohoo.
Yeah, so, I'm always happy when there's like 10 people in there. So
it took a while to get more than one or two people.
Yeah, we've done premieres, especially a year ago. We were doing premieres to barely
2 people,
2-3 people. And we would stay in there anyway, and chat with them, because
it's part of the grind.
It's part of the grind. So it's like, hey, we're here, we're available. Watch it with us. We can chat on the side and all of that, whether it's 2-3 people or 200, which would be nice to get to.
Well, and the beauty of this strange thing we call the internet is, like if there's not a lot of people watching this thing live, it will record, it will stay out there, and sooner or later someone's going to come across it. They're going to go, man, these three guys actually act like they've got some sense. They actually talk like they know what they're doing. Yeah, believe it or not, they do. So, they'll find us sooner or later.
Mostly winging it.
Mostly what?
Mostly winging it.
Dude, you have just summed up my entire broadcasting philosophy. It's like, wing it. I don't give a shit.
Like, we'll do it live, damn it.
We'll do it live. So let me ask you, how did you two come to meet each other? Whose idea was it? Okay, I think we'd really be great at this whole podcasting thing. Let's do something. I mean, Daniel, I know you're into the arts. Brently, I know a little bit about your background, but if each of you could give the 30,000 foot overview and then go into the story of how did you two,
Go ahead. So sorry.
Okay. I mean, so yeah, I'm an artist and painter, but my background is actually in writing. That's what I got my degree in. I've self-published a few books of poems. I paint.
Congratulations.
I used to work as a substitute teacher for many years, and I was going to go into that alternate route and become a full-time teacher. And then lockdowns happened and mandates and all of that, which changed my entire life path trajectory. As to how me and Brent know each other, we've known each other about 7 years now. 2015. We used to date for many years. We don't anymore, but we met on Facebook through some mutual friends. As to how the show got started, well, like I said, the world closed down. Brett and I have always been very outspoken type people about politics and social things and just what's happening in the world. So naturally, we had a lot to say while all of that was going down. And we were very vocal on the internet, but we were also having a lot of these discussions in person between ourselves, between people in our friend group, etc. And we just kind of thought, well, it would be great to like record some of this stuff and to just put it out there. But also we kind of got tired of the typical back and forth of arguing with people online and saying the same shit over again. Where in my head, it just kind of made sense. Well, why don't we just record these things? And then say you encounter someone online and you're going back and forth arguing with them, instead of repeating yourself, I can be like, well, hey, we talked about this on episode blah, blah, blah at this time or whatever. Just save time, you know? But the idea, I guess, was sort of all of ours, but I don't know. I guess it was mainly mine. And Brent's sister also was sort of involved in the beginning. She helped us, like a lot of all the pictures and art and stuff.
Everything on the website.
Everything on the website is all her. I designed the website, but all the photographs and stuff is all Caitlin. She's a multimedia artist, and she was also involved in a lot of those roundtable discussions that we were having in private. And she's been on the show a few times as well. The name I came up with because we were getting accused of that online. You talk about politics, if you question the mandates and lockdowns, if you question the jab and all that
even
stuff.
In person too, we were accused
even in person,
dangerous rhetoric because we were speaking out against the lockdowns and against medical mandates.
So the name was kind of like it's tongue in cheek in a sense. It's all right. Well, you're going to accuse us of that.
We're going to trademark.
We're going to trademark that, and that's what fine. We're Dangerous Rhetoric, whatever. If I guess that's what we are.
Deal with it.
So we decided to start the show at the end of 2020, around I would say December. It was when the idea really kind of started to formulate, and we decided, all right, we should do this. We shot like one test pilot episode, which Caitlin was involved in, but it was crappy. Like the sound was bad. We never released it. It was just kind of like a trial run. And then an interesting event happened on January 6th in Washington, D.C. I don't know. Have you heard of it?
That sounds vaguely familiar, like something might have happened in my...
Might have happened.
Just so happened to have a brand new camera.
Yeah, so we had a brand new camera, and we wanted to... We knew we didn't just want to do talking. We did want to go on the street and do on the street stuff. And we've done a few things since then, attending protests and whatnot. But Brent had the idea of like, well, hey, this final Trump rally is going to happen. It's going to be big. Something crazy is going to happen.
They're going to lie about it.
And they're going to lie about it. The media is going to lie about it no matter what it is.
What? They're going to lie? Surely not, gentlemen.
Never happens.
Never.
No.
Brent was very adamant about going. Me, I was a little more hesitant. I was like, dude, it's going to get crazy. Like something bad could happen. Like I was right, of course. But he was like, I'm going.
Hey, so far we're not in the gulags.
So far, not.
So far.
But he was like,
technically we could be because I think the statute of limitations is 3 years on trespassing.
I don't know what the hell they're going to get us on.
Trespassing, that's what they get everybody.
That's what they're going to try to get people on. But there's a shitload of people there. So that's what hitting all those people.
And we never went very close to the Capitol. We were like on the grounds outside, but like we saw the crazy and we were like, I don't want anything to do with all that.
We went that direction too because our train was that way and we were leaving. By the time, because they announced a curfew and stuff, and they were like, "You guys got to."
Yeah, but like out. I think at 4:30, 5 o'clock they said, and we took off by like 3. We were tired. I think
the curfew was like
standing since like 10:30.
I think the curfew was actually like 6.
It was 6, and we left at 4:30.
We left around 4:30, and so we went.
And they started busing in like the stormtroopers. Like you could see cops arriving in like full on like stormtrooper
tactical, gear.
Yes. And I was like, let's go.
Yeah, time to go. Anyway, so we
got footage.
We attended that, and that was like our first journalistic adventure. We hadn't started the podcast yet, but like I said, we already knew that that's what we were going to do. So we went to that, and fast forward a little bit, by the end of January, the FBI showed up at my residence at the time in New Jersey.
What?
Yeah, that was I don't live there anymore, but it's my childhood home where my parents are still living, and my grandma's in a nursing home. It was her house, but she was there at the time. This was before she was in a nursing home, and they showed up there looking for me to question me. A friend of ours who lives there let them in stupidly, And they talked to my grandma, scared the crap out of her. She's like, what is all this? You know, my grandson's not a criminal. He's an artist. And kept asking her questions. She was like, I don't know. I don't know anything. You know, they knew about Brent. They asked about him too, etc. My brother calls me and I'm here in New York. And he's like, dude, the FBI just showed up looking for you. And my heart sank. I knew obviously what this was about. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. And so since then, like, people disappeared from my life. People stopped talking to me. Like, very few people reached out to us and were like, wow, that's so scary. Like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. No, they don't want to be associated because the media paints all of us with that brush. You're an insurrectionist, you're treasonous, whatever. So I backed out a bit. I shut down my social media for a little while.
Sure.
And kind of we had to reassess, like, are we still going to do this? Are we still going to start this show and continue to speak? Because things got clearly more serious. You know, it's one thing to be saying all these things on the internet, to go out, to protest and this and that. It's another thing when the feds show up and they want to talk to you. That changes your perspective and it makes you step back a bit and reassess, like, okay, what am I doing? Do I want to keep doing this? And the main thing for me of why I had to do that is my family got pulled into it. And that was what upset me the most. It wasn't that they showed up looking for me. It's like, whatever, you know, I'll take the consequences of my actions. You know, I go to this big event, the feds want to chat with me, whatever, that's on me. But the fact that my parents were, you know, got scared by it, that my grandma got freaked out by the whole thing, like that they got just pulled into something because of my own actions, that's what really made me reassess. And then we eventually went to Florida a couple months later. Our friend has a place over there and a little business, and he set us up with some work to pay for our room and board, and he let us stay there. So we went to Florida and we spent about a year there. And that was where we started the podcast, was over there in Florida. And that was April 2021. At first, it was just me and Brent shooting the shit, like bringing up news stories, stuff happening in the world, and comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we started to have guests on, and we realized we liked that more. We liked the dynamic of bringing another mind in who's had different experiences or views on things and to bounce those ideas off.
And despite the fact that we had virtually no audience, people were still willing to come on the show and spend time and chatting with us. So it was,
as long as you ask and you're,
it was amazing.
Genuine, you know, you never know what people are going to say, right? Like, you just got to go for it. But, you know, we did that. We started doing the episodes. We came back to New York for a little bit to visit and do some other things. And then we went back to Florida. And then at the beginning of June, the feds showed up again, this time in Florida. And this time specifically looking for Brent. They wanted to question him. And we were ready this time because we knew that. We're like, all right, well, if they come looking for us again,
camera,
we're going to record
everything
and put it on blast, because at this time we were already like set, like, we're doing this show. We're not going to shut up. We're going to get louder. And if they really want to harass us some more, then we're going to record that and put it on blast. There you go. Great content. So that's what we did. You know, we recorded the incident. We put it on YouTube, put it on Twitter, all that stuff. And we've been going strong ever since then. They've left us alone. You know, they probably just wanted to bring us in and have us, you know, did you see this person? Do you know this person? Did you talk to this person? And we had no interest in playing the witch hunt game. So we just told them, no, we're not interested in talking. And that was that. They left us alone. But that's the origin story of Dangerous Rhetoric.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. I mean, okay, the visit to your ancestral home in New Jersey is one thing. All of a sudden they show up in Florida, and it's like, really? I mean, you know, we could probably, if we ever got into it, and I know I'd have to go digging around and finding the stuff. I mean, off the top of my head, historically, I know it. The reasons why the FBI should be abolished, I am, after watching these jackbooted thugs over the past 4 years, I'm ready. Let's just, I mean, the forensic lab, that I can see keeping, I understand that. The rest of it, gone.
And you're not alone in that opinion. The first episode of this year we put out was with Kyle Seraphin, who's an FBI whistleblower who went to Project Veritas.
Yeah.
And he 100% agrees with you. And this is a guy who's worked for this organization for many years. He was on the inside. He respects a lot of the people there. He still thinks a lot of them are great people who are doing good work. But he ultimately, his position now is that this agency should be dissolved.
Too corrupt.
It's not needed anymore. It's too corrupt. It operates without oversight.
He was one of the guys that was working on the white supremacist problem. And found out very quickly that the people that they were investigating were not a threat. You know, they were either just typical normies, like maybe saying a little too much online, but not a serious, you know, criminal threat. And that the FBI, the organization, was sort of blowing things up out of proportion because they knew that that's what the leadership wanted to hear.
Yeah. I mean, go back into the days very early on in the 30s and 40s, you know, with the Great Depression and the legendary gangsters, you know, Bonnie and Clyde, Babyface Nelson, etc. The stuff that a younger J. Edgar Hoover did, not just to these criminals, but to his own agents in the pursuit thereof. You know, if people really knew it widespread, they'd be like, geez, God. I mean, yeah, the legendary G-Man image of the FBI, no, nobody should be buying this. But that's a side argument for a side day. Gosh, no, I saw I was trying to do research, and I went back to your guys' very first episode, and you guys look like, and this is not a jab, but just
We were
was
so
the first.
awkward.
No. It wasn't awkward, but what it struck me as the way you guys were lined up with the camera.
We were on camera.
What was that?
Yeah, the way you guys were lined up on camera, you look like Sulu and Chekhov on the bridge of the Enterprise. It's like you're sitting side by side of each other, and you got all these gizmos and cameras and microphones and stuff and computer keyboards. And I'm like, holy shit, these guys actually look at this thing. Look at this outfit. It's like, holy cow. But yeah, I mean, you guys are really killing it. You really are. And I love where it's come from. I love where it's going. And that's part of why I wanted to reach out to you guys. So this seems like a fairly good point to kind of swerve into topic of the evening. There's been something that's been on my mind now for, I guess, weeks and months, the more I keep hearing about it. Where I come from, as far as this thing I do on this crazy thing I call YouTube, is more in the area of, you know, politics, economics, law, history, etc. And I'm not saying you guys don't touch on those topics either, but when it comes to certain cultural issues, I don't necessarily speak to them. It's not that I don't care about them, and it's not that I don't think they're important. It's just I've only got X amount of bandwidth, and some subjects I'm fairly good at, and some it's like, I know I don't like what's going on, but I don't know enough about what's going on to be able to speak to this intelligently. Whereas you guys, you, Carrie Smith, Mikey Harlow, bunch of other people out there are just like right on the edge of this thing, talking about it, dispensing information, letting people make up their own minds and say, look, here's what you're being told. Here's the alternative, which is the truth. So with that said, transgenderism and children in America. Oh yeah, we just took the deep dive right into the serious stuff real quick. I want to share screen on something because I want to, I guess, maybe form the basis of where the traditions that I come out of, the definitions of the words set up the terms of the discussion. And I'm sure you guys are very much the same way. The problem with it is anymore, and stop me if I'm wrong, if you think I'm wrong, every time someone like me or you or anybody else has a discussion with someone from the left, however you want to define that, and you think you've got them pinned on something, well, this is what you mean. No, it's not what I mean. What do you mean that's not what you mean? You just said the definition a minute. Oh, no, that's not the definition of the word. Yes, it is. Now, so that kind of sets up where I'm going with this. So give me 1 second here, because I should have had this done before you guys showed up. Okay. Website, American Psychological Association, Understanding Transgender People, Gender Identity, and Gender Expression. Okay. Transgender, umbrella term for persons whose gender identity, gender expression, or behavior does not conform to that typically associated with the sex to which they were assigned at birth. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole thing right there is just like one big semantic game. And that's the thing with leftists, is that they play these semantic games where they lie by appropriation of term and redefining term. Yeah. So, and anytime you try to, it's like wrestling with somebody while they're coated in oil. Like anytime you try to pin them, they just slip right out and they're like, oh, well, then this term. It's such like transgender. First of all, like I don't even know if that's a real thing. Like that term itself implies that, you know, somebody is able to have a quote unquote gender presentation that does not align with their biological sex. And I don't think that's a thing. Like there are people, yes, that present as you know, like guys that wear females clothing and identify femininely, but that's all they're doing. Like, you can call that transgender, but you're just assigning a label to that set of conditions. It doesn't actually mean, and this is the thing that leftists lie about, it doesn't actually mean they are the opposite sex. They're just they are their sex, and they're presenting as the opposite because they have a mental health condition where they get anxiety. Mostly in our experience on our show, we've had 5 detransitioners. No, we have four detransitioners with 1 in the pipeline, and 2 transitioners. So we had
who
Sarah,
identifies transsexual, specifically, not transgender.
Specifically, yeah. They use that term,
the older term.
And that was Sarah Higdon and Buck Angel. And every single one of those people has had a traumatic experience. Some had, like experience with SA in childhood. And, what I think is, my operating hypothesis at this point is that if you have gender dysphoria and you are more comfortable, that's probably because there's a traumatic experience in your background that has associated your biological sex with that traumatic experience for whatever reason.
Could you pull up the article again? There was something in there that I wanted to read out loud, which kind of touches on this stuff. But another thing that I wanted to add is these people, they claim that gender roles and all of that stuff is based on, it's like a social construct, right? When funny is they're taking that quote unquote social construct, those stereotypes, and that's what they're basing everything that a gender identity is. So it says here, a gender identity refers to a person's internal sense of being male, female, or something else. So it's based on feelings. Gender expression refers to the way a person communicates gender identity to others through behavior, clothing, hairstyles, voice, or body characteristics. Meaning stereotypes. So they claim to be the ones breaking through that stuff, but the entire ideology is dependent upon it. Like when they're diagnosing young kids as having gender dysphoria, they're looking at things like the type of toys they play with, or the colors they're attracted to, or like things like that, like their behavior, when it's like none of that determines the sex that you are. Like, you can have gender non-conforming kids, and most of those kids are going to end up just growing up to be like us. They're going to end up as homosexuals when they become adults. And that's one of the reasons you're seeing so many people like Brent and I speaking out about this stuff, because a lot of us see ourselves in those kids. Like, I wasn't wearing dresses and things like that. I had no interest in wearing heels or cross-dressing when I was a kid, but I was a very sensitive kid. I didn't like sports. I was kind of, a little more neurotic.
You had really long hair in your teens.
I had long hair, stuff like that. Like, I didn't fit in as like, I didn't feel like I was the same as the other boys. You feel different. You feel isolated when you start puberty. So a lot of those kids, aside from, the rates of autism and things like that we know now from research of those kids being pushed into this direction, a lot of them, the majority of them, will probably end up as being gay or lesbian adults if they were just allowed to finish puberty, come into themselves, accept who they are, et cetera, et cetera. And instead of allowing them to do that, we're further confusing them, and we're telling them a lie. And this is the thing that people need to understand about this stuff. If you tell someone they can change their sex, because that is what they're telling them. They'll say, oh, sex and gender are different. I don't buy that shit. Gender and sex are, to me, intertwined. They're the same exact thing. How you express yourself is something else. That's personality. It has nothing to do with that. But to tell a child that you can actually change your sex, that you're in the wrong body, and that we can change that, we can fix that for you, it's a lie, for one, because you can't. It's impossible to change your sex. And two, it's also it's evil. It's dangerous to tell a kid that there's something inherently wrong with them, and
we can fix it,
but your body is wrong. And we affirm that to them. Like, people really need to sit back and think about this shit, because what happened to, like, accept the things about yourself that you can't change and love yourself for who you are. It's the opposite message now. It's don't love yourself for who you are. There's something fundamentally wrong with you, and we can help you with drugs and surgeries.
Okay, let me ask you a question, because there's another term that you have been using in this up to this point: gender dysphoria or body dysphoria, etc. However, I'm using it broadly. And I'm going to ask a question that's probably going to sound cruel to anybody else who would hear this. And is this a legitimate psychological condition? Because the way I'm understanding the definition of gender dysphoria, it's feelings of awkward. I mean, and if I'm not defining this correctly, stop me, fellas, please. Feelings of awkwardness about your body, yourself, etc. Am I defining this correctly? Is this a legitimate psychological condition? Because I think part of the reason the conservatives get so tiptoey on this is the issue. Oh, you're just being cruel. No, it's not a matter of being cruel. We want to speak the truth to this matter, but we also want to do so out of a basis of understanding and compassion. So, is gender dysphoria a legitimate condition?
So first of all, gender dysphoria is the modern term for this. The original term used to be gender identity disorder. That is what it was originally called. And it was considered a disorder. It was considered, yes, a psychological illness. And Brett mentioned earlier, we had Sarah Higdon on the show and Buck Angel, and both of them describe it as a mental disorder. Okay. And these are people who identify as trans, and that is what they are saying in their own words. From what I understand from those interviews and talking to them, and I remember Sarah specifically describing this, what it is that they have a hyper fixation on their secondary sex characteristics, and that's what makes them deeply uncomfortable, is seeing those secondary sex characteristics of themselves, because they don't feel like they belong in that type of body. And that's obviously a disorder, because you're in the body you're in.
It's also not any one thing either. So, it can be like trauma-induced discomfort with your biological sex. But, there's also a huge class of autogynephiles.
Yes, and that's the sexual
which is sort of a whole nother thing, but it's tangentially related. That's when you get aroused by seeing yourself as the opposite sex. Is mostly men that are dressing up as women and get aroused or have a fetish or a kink from seeing themselves as a woman.
And a lot of those men are actually, again, would have just ended up being gay men, or who are gay men who did
There's a good chunk of straight men too that are AGPs.
But the type I'm talking about are the gay men who, instead of accepting that they're gay men and trying to get with other gay men, they want to attract straight men. They're attracted to that hyper masculine type of straight man, and they feel like the only way they can fulfill the fetish and to get that type of guy is to become the opposite sex, because they want to, pardon my language here, they want to be fucked like they're a woman. That sounds
gentlemen,
gentlemen,
before we go any further, let me put your minds at ease on something. You're invited onto my front porch. Short of you using certain words that somebody at YouTube's like, "You're out of here," like the umpire behind home plate, you can say pretty much anything you want. I don't care. My only one rule on my front porch: just be respectful. You may disagree with somebody, but be respectful to them. Short of that, I don't care what you say. So, boys, turn it loose.
That is the proper position, I think. Cursing's allowed now on YouTube. They actually don't demonetize and stuff for that anymore, although they used to.
Unless it's excessive. They do. When you hit monetization, you have to sort of like report yourself, and they give you like a list of these.
Wait, I've got to report myself if I swear?
So for every
I'll never get anything else done.
Piece that you upload, there's like a checklist of sections, and it's like, does your content contain anything that's like sexual, or that's like really controversial topics, or that uses foul language? And there's like, I don't know, 8 or 9 of these little subsections, and then you can click them to expand, and then they give you little breakdowns for each one. And so you have to kind of click that if there's anything in there.
Pre-warn them.
So you would say something like, okay, foul language. And then you have to sub-click, like, is it a little, or is it a lot, or is it just a middle amount? And then once you do all that, then you can go to submit rating. And then depending on how you reported yourself, it tells you what your chances of getting monetized are.
Do these people not understand that there's some scoundrels like me? They're going to lie like a bad rug. Well, I'm as pure as the driven snow. What do you mean? It's like, no, of course there's nothing said that's wrong. What are you, mad? What are you, crazy?
Yeah, 99% of the time when I'm doing it, there's nothing that, because I sort of plan, we plan in advance. We don't put things on YouTube that you're not supposed to put on YouTube, because
sure.
I've already had one channel that got nuked, and I'm well familiar now with the things that you can and cannot say here.
All right.
We avoid that, but most of the stuff, it's just, I hit none and it hits submit, and we haven't had a problem with monetization yet, except for getting paid out. That's a tricky thing. I did my AdSense account wrong.
I saw that post on Twitter. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Absolutely crazy.
Super chat. Our first super chat was a $50 super chat from CB, one of our watchers. He's also a supporter of the Disaffected podcast, and it was so nice of him. And to access that cash, I have to go through a million more hoops. I spent 45 minutes on the phone trying to get it resolved yesterday, and I'll have to figure it out sometime this week.
YouTube is honestly where we're frustrated with YouTube.
I hate it.
It's not only did it take us, the reason it took us so long to get monetized is we were being suppressed on there. I know a lot of people say that, but we legitimately were. We had 2 episodes. We had 1 warning since the beginning. We got that warning in the first couple months, I think, of the show.
Super early.
And then we had a strike, I think, after that. And then that came off. And then we got another strike and another strike last year. And we almost had a 3rd one. And because of that, we went back and removed at least 75% of our whole back catalog from YouTube to try to avoid a 3rd strike. But what that also did was it removed all of our views.
Views and watch hours.
No.
So by the time those 2 strikes went away and we could actually finally apply for monetization, we didn't have enough watch hours. So we had to wait even longer. And it's been a whole ordeal.
Very frustrating.
So with all that said, anyone watching right now, please go find us on Rumble and follow us on there, because we're definitely going to try to put more traction on there and start directing people toward Rumble, because we're fed up with YouTube. We're fed up with it.
Also, you don't have to worry about what you say on Rumble.
You don't. Plus, fuck them. All the shit that they did during COVID and all this crap.
Yeah.
Shame on those people. Suppressing information, not letting people openly talk about these important subjects, just banning you if you want to question masks, question the shots. Fuck off.
Well, and to me, that's just it. And this is what I mean by everybody's kind of coming to the spot, and there's certain things they're agreeing on. And one of them is, look, why not just let people have information and make up their own mind, run it through the crucible, put the fire under it, and find out if it's the pure truth or whether it's the dross that you have to scrape off and be gone. Yeah.
They don't want you to find out the truth.
Oh, I know.
There's too much money to be made in fucking lies and bullshit.
Too much money. But I guess we'll get back on the trance.
Okay.
After that long tangent about YouTube.
Sorry.
But, so the last thing I was mentioning, if people want to know more about those type of men who are gay men who are confused and couldn't come to terms with that, go watch our episode with Shapeshifter, who had bottom surgery, had breast implants, had feminization surgery, went the full, as far as you can go into it, still ended up detransitioning. Now says, I'm a man. I've always been a man. I was just a gay man who was confused and had a fetish because I wanted to attract straight men and I wanted to be fucked like a woman. Straight up admits it. But now is in this kind of awkward middle space where he went so far into it that it's actually easier for him to just stay transitioned, meaning to not bother having the breasts removed. He's never going to have his penis restored. That's not possible. To not bother to cut his hair short or anything, to not bother to even make an effort now to try to look like a man again, because he just went so far.
Yeah, he's just trying to basically figure out his hormone situation so that he can just have, some normalcy and some comfort in his life.
Yeah, because he had complications with the bottom surgery and all of that, and can't orgasm anymore, all these things. So it's listen to these people and their stories, because it is very important. They went through a lot, and I do sympathize with them, and I know they have trauma and issues and all that stuff, and it's just the whole thing is sad. It's sad that
these are some of the most vulnerable among us people, in terms of kids that have autism spectrum disorders, people that have trauma in their history, you know, especially, you know, SA, you know, in childhood. These are the people that they are medically preying upon for financial benefit of the pharmaceutical industry, and lying to them, you know, whole cloth, completely telling, you know, downplaying the risks and complications.
Not just that, convincing them that you actually can change your sex. Like, that's what Shape was sold on.
Yeah, he was promised one thing and delivered something else. And it's the most criminal, you know, it's the worst kind. It's not medicine. You can't even call it medicine. It's the worst kind of charlatanism and grifting. You know, you're just taking these vulnerable people that are struggling and having these uncomfortable feelings, and you're telling them, oh, our magic snake oil will fix that problem right away. All you have to do is, you know, take this and you'll, you know, in 2 years, you'll be right as a rain. And, you know, one thing they never talk about is that people that transition, their suicidality peaks 7 years post surgeries and treatments.
Jesus.
So a lot of the times it's these people that have regret, or don't have good outcomes, or realize that they've gone through the whole thing and they still have these troubling feelings of dysphoria and identity disorder that they have not gone away. And these are the people that they're preying upon, and they're just, it's just, the whole thing is just totally mind-boggling.
I'm glad you're saying people too, because this brings up another interesting and important point about this, because a lot of folks on the forefront of this fight are focusing on the children, and obviously we know that that's a very serious thing. You want to try to stop as many young people who haven't even fully developed yet.
19 states now passing laws against it.
And that is important. We need to be able to at least start there with drawing a line legally.
But it's a start.
It's a start. And the reason why I say it's only a start is because what really needs to change is the affirm model, where you just affirm. And there's no pushback. There's no questioning. There's no trying every single other avenue and treatment and way to get this person to be more comfortable in themselves without having to alter them chemically or surgically or anything to have them feel better first, before you even allow them to consider the possibility of the other stuff. And the reason I say this is every detrans person that we spoke with on our show transitioned after the age of 18. They were adults. They were adults. So the model is what needs to change. Yes, we can start with that line, that hard line of 18 up, where you can start to consider it. But I think there needs to be some other protections in place here, because it's a lot of adults.
And really what it comes down to is that the medical organizations that are involved in setting standard in Western countries, really in the United States especially, they have all the logic backwards. So if you do the watchful waiting approach, which was the standard for children who had gender dysphoria, you would just stand back and wait, and you know the kid would go through puberty, and almost like 80% of the time the feelings would just go away with puberty, because puberty is awkward and everybody hates it. Nobody likes going through puberty, like newsflash, hello. But what they're saying now is that if you do that to children, if you encourage them to engage in talk therapy, they're calling it conversion therapy, because what their argument is that you are trying to get this trans person to not be trans, and so that's conversion therapy. You know, in the same way that if you would try to talk a gay person out of being gay, that we consider that conversion therapy. Yeah. Well, in this case, what they're not realizing, or what they don't care about, is that many of these people are just gay with trauma, and they're not allowing for that possibility to be expressed, and they're pushing them down this affirm pathway, which has no off ramps and no alternatives, and it's ensnaring, as we've seen with the adults. You know, if it's ensnaring adults that we're not actually genuine or true trans, and we can debate if that's even is such a thing, if there is such a thing as true transgenders. Or has this whole approach been wrong from the beginning, and what we're looking at is untreated, undiagnosed trauma history or something else? But this is the situation, and this is the problem that we have now. It's like they're calling it conversion therapy. If you dare to be like, maybe we shouldn't cut the teats off the child, or maybe we shouldn't block that 8-year-old's puberty so that he'll never grow properly and mature as an adult.
And maybe we shouldn't just tell an adult who's having these issues that, well, the way you can solve your problem is by having your penis sliced in half and inverted into your body. to make a
maybe
flesh.
you want to do a little talk therapy first.
Maybe you want to try something else before you resort
it's a little
to that
extreme.
drastic.
You guys are kind of going where I've been thinking about. I mean, here's kind of where I'm coming down this. Now, whether I represent any or all people on the right with my position is my own. If you are an adult, okay, and you make the choice to do this, okay, I may not agree with it, but you have the right to do it. Now, before you do it, however, you better look long and hard before you take this leap. I mean, because you're talking about medical, emotional issues that you do this, that I don't know that you're going to solve your problem.
It's irreversible.
It is irreversible. Okay.
Once you remove your breasts, yes.
And the other thing that sucks is that kids don't think that far ahead. Like, I didn't realize the commitment I was making with signing off on my student loans. Like, I find that process to be incredibly predatory, because an 18 and 19-year-old does not have the cognitive hardware. Brain's not finished growing. You don't have the ability to
exactly
far out. And we're signing, basically documents that say, oh, it's fine. I'll pay it off sooner or later. And that was like the lie that we were sold. And, and I think about that way, just like I'm mad about student loans and circumcision, let alone, this whole new world of, yeeting teats off of 12-year-olds and puberty blocking the boys. I'm like, this is...
Well, and this gets to something else that I want to go back to something Carrie Smith said, kind of at the tangibly related level, drag. Everybody, and this is Carrie Smith talking, everybody's understood that drag is something for adults. Whether you like it, not like it, agree with it, disagree with it, it has always been traditionally understood this is an adult thing.
It's all entertainment.
Okay, now, somehow, some way, going back to this issue of transgenderism, if you're an adult and you make the decision to go through these surgeries, go through these hormone replacements, whatever, all of it, okay, you're an adult, you can do this, all right? Whether you should or not, it's a whole other issue, but you can do it. Now, let's flip that coin around to the other side. And this is where or how did the door get opened that somehow somebody, some parent, thought it was a really good idea. Mom, I'm confused. I don't like this, Mom. Oh, don't worry, honey. We'll just change it for you. Huh? What? Where did we go with this? I mean, because it's like, okay, we're talking about giving puberty blockers to like 8 or 9-year-olds. We're talking about cutting off the breasts of young women. We're talking about, oh, okay, you don't like your dick? We'll get rid of it. It's like, these are children that don't understand who and what they are yet. They don't have the emotional maturity. They don't have the intellectual maturity. Any number of different reasons why you shouldn't let them do this. What? How did this door get open and everybody's just running through it right now?
Yeah, there was a really interesting, 11-minute speech by a Texas state representative. Her name is Sean Theory, and she is a Democrat who came out in support of SB 14, which is a Texas law that just passed in the Texas Senate, and it outlaws gender transitions for minors. And she was shaking giving her speech. She had to sort of pre-qualify her remarks, saying that she was coming from a place of compassion, that she's done a lot of research into the issue, that as a mother and an African-American woman who's been marginalized, she certainly, feels strongly for, minorities and people who feel marginalized in the mainstream community. She had to do all that pre-qualification, basically to come out there and say, look, we don't let under 18-year-olds get tattoos. We don't let under 21-year-olds buy cigarettes, drink alcohol, or e-cigarettes. And the reason we do that is because we understand that children don't have the mental faculties to make decisions that will have lifelong complications, lifelong, impacts.
Bingo.
And she's like, we can't, have these kids making these body modification and permanent situations.
She's scared to death.
And she was shaking the whole time she was talking.
When you watch her saying this stuff, you're just like, this person is legitimately afraid of the consequences that are going to happen just for stating these things, especially being a Democrat stating these things, the shit she's going to get from fellow Democrats. But the scariest people are the trans radical activists. We know what some of these people are like. We know how some of them act. We know that they're associated with groups like Antifa and things like that. We know, like, Andy got a freaking brain concussion and had to go to, rehabilitation because they bashed him so bad. We know Billboard Chris has gotten attacked multiple times.
Broken arm.
His arm broken.
Thrown to the ground. Punched. Spit at several times.
And look at, what's Kelly and Conway?
Kelly Jean.
I messed her whole name up. I just know Posey Parker. I forget.
Posey Parker.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Jean.
I forget her real name because I'm so used to calling her.
It's another K word.
I'm so used to calling her Posey Parker. But, like, we saw what happened to her in New Zealand.
Oh, God, yeah. I saw the video. That was horrible.
Which also
even
goes
when they
to
tried
show,
to have her little event here in New York, there were a bunch of troons that were down there all shirtless, screaming.
But it goes to show too that this is an issue sweeping the West. This is not just something affecting the United States. It's really bad in Canada. Like look at Peterson.
I know.
He was one of the first people who opened my eyes that this was an issue because of what happened to him in 2016. And since then, he's been right about almost everything he said that was going to play out, that it would get worse, and it has gotten worse. And what he was talking about, and this was the next topic I wanted to get into here, because you're talking about, well, hey, adults should be allowed to do this and that, and that's fine. If you're an adult, you can make a decision. Well, we're talking about some legal things here. We're talking about compelled speech, which is what Peterson was calling out with Bill C-16 in Canada. He's saying you can't compel speech. You can't force someone to say whatever pronouns you want them to say simply because you want them to. You can't do that. And then the other issue here is same-sex spaces, the privacy of same-sex spaces. And, I used to be a little more open on this issue and, whatever, let Blair use the women's bathroom because Blair White really looks like a woman, or let Buck use the men's bathroom because he really looks like a man, etc. Now I'm kind of at the point where I'm just like, well, if they want to go and do that and they pass really well, no one's really going to know the difference anyway.
If you pass, you pass.
If you pass, you pass. Go for it, but at your own risk.
At your own risk.
There should be no legal protection for these people to access same-sex spaces.
Because when we've had that, people abuse. It gets abused. We saw that.
We can't do it.
We saw that perv in LA who went into the Wii Spa, who was walking around flashing people.
Yes.
People complain, and it was this whole big brouhaha, whole big. And then it turns out that this guy had been arrested multiple times, and the cops were still looking to have a conversation with him. And then, because he had done that not only at the Wii Spa, but at like 2 other locations in the past.
And even worse, men in women's prisons who sexually abused and raped women in those prisons. Because
there's women in New Jersey that just got pregnant and had a baby because the trans woman was able to get one of the biological women because she has a penis still.
So really, I think the point, and they'll say, oh, well, how often does it really happen?
Too often.
I think at this point, even one time is too much. It just, the risk to me is greater. I think the people who transition and pass, the risk should be on them. If you're going to go sneak into the bathroom and whatever, and you pass, that legal risk is on you. I don't think we should be putting the risk on to women in particular, but even men. Men don't want women in their private spaces either. Like when I'm at the gym and in the locker room and stuff, personally, I don't want to see a random woman walking in there while I'm, in my
badge out.
Yeah, it's just like. So, but the thing about the issue is because of the disparity of force, because guess what? The biological sexes are different. What do you know? It affects women more directly because men can hurt women more easily than women can hurt men. And that's what it comes down to. And it's the same issue with sports and all of that. Like, we need to draw a line with this shit. Our friend Basil, who comes on the show often, another thing he talks about, and he's a lawyer, is birth certificates and IDs. We need to draw a line there too. You should not be allowed to change the sex on your birth certificate or ID simply because you are now cross-dressing as the opposite sex.
I absolutely agree with that. Yes. Absolutely.
All sorts of reasons, like one of them being medical. Doctors need to know.
Basic.
They need to know that. So like, am I seeing a woman or a man? Am I seeing a female or a male patient? They need to know that stuff. It's important.
Absolutely.
So it's like, legally, I don't think gender identities should be recognized with special protections to access same-sex spaces and sports. But I do think people can do what they want. They can cross-dress. They can change themselves. Do what you want. If you want to go do that, fine. Have fun doing that. But you don't have these special legal protections that then infringe upon the rights of everyone else, the vast majority of society. It's too far, too much. And that's my line right there.
Let me go back to something, and I'm not going to hold you to a hard and fast answer on this, but this is something that's been kind of like stewing in my brain for a while. Let me give you a scenario. Take 100 parents, put them in a room. They have kids. Out of these 100 parents, how many of them are either encouraging, allowing, or pushing their kids to have breasts removed, penises cut off, hormone?
Too many.
I agree with you, but I mean, here's why I'm asking the question, and it's more of a devil's advocate question, because I can just see someone coming along and saying, "Oh, look, the internet it amplifies everything. This is not that big of a deal. It's just a small, occasional thing you hear about. Somebody blows it up on Twitter. You know, it's not that pervasive." How pervasive is this problem right now?
So I can give you one example. I went up to Boston and hang out with Billboard Chris. One of his times he went outside. I did it twice now, but the second time I went with him outside of Boston Children's Hospital. We met a mother, Black woman. She has 6 kids. 2 of them were grown and totally missed this, but her 4 younger ones who were in high school and junior high at the time, she said, they had just moved, and in the new school, the 14-year-old had reported that all of the girls were either bisexual, trans, or lesbian. All of them. There was not one straight girl except for her daughter.
Yeah. Which brings up another point here.
This is a lot more common than we think, I think.
Another point here, too, is that this is affecting young girls more than it's affecting young boys.
I'll agree with that.
They're much more malleable. They're more easily influenced by social impact,
by a social contagion, and they're more likely to self-harm and things like that, cutting, bulimia, those sorts of
higher incidences of depression and anxiety. They're more neurotic in general,
and they tend to have more issues during puberty with their body and the way they look. That's a common thing. I'm not saying it doesn't happen with boys, obviously it does, but I want to bring up this book. I haven't even read it yet, but I heard about it so much. I've seen multiple
Abigail Schreier,
interviews with her, but Irreversible Damage by Abigail Schreier. And she talks about what I think she describes in here as like a rapid onset gender dysphoria.
You got a link for that thing? Because if you want to throw it to me in private chat, I'll put it up on the screen.
I'm gonna throw it right here in the chat.
Okay.
Itself, actually. Okay. But her whole thing is that this is a social contagion, what we're seeing, and there's a reason that you're seeing so many friend groups of young girls all of a sudden within the group identifying as non-binary or trans, and it's a lot of them are probably awkward. Most of them have autism.
It's also a fad.
But it's a fad.
I mean, when I was growing up, there was, goth kids were a thing. I did goth for a year. I dressed in all black. I put, I got funny contacts and I dyed my hair jet black. And my mom was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, my grandma was like, "I'm not taking you
to
church looking like that.
I'm dark and sad." And she's like, "Okay, whatever."
Yeah.
My parents understood that it was a phase. He'll grow out of it, because guess what? Kids go through phases. They try on styles. It's all part of finding yourself.
They try to figure out their identity, right? And that's what all of this is about, is identity, what makes you you and all of this stuff. And what we're doing is we're telling them that superficial shit is what makes your identity, right? When it's like, I think your identity is the stuff you're interested in that you want to accomplish and do. It's
your morals, your values, your ideas. It's all the unseen within.
Yeah, like I wouldn't tell people if I wrote a bio on Twitter or whatever, and I'm always changing mine, but I wouldn't put on there like gay man or things like those. Things aren't my identity. My identity is I'm a writer, I'm a podcaster, I'm a painter.
He's a big old figget, Daniel.
I'm a big old figget. I'm a friend, I'm a brother, I'm a son. Those things are more important, I think.
Are you a brother with an ER or a brother with an A?
Friend.
I'm sorry.
By the way, Daniel, you posted one of your paintings online. I believe it was a gentleman with his back turned. It was very well done, by the way. I have to give you a compliment on that.
Yeah,
he truly was.
He needs to paint more, and then he needs to sell some of them because he has trouble letting go and finishing work.
Yeah, don't be a starving artist, please. I mean, come on now.
Time.
Good morning. Yeah, no, Daniel has an amazing talent. He actually sold one of his paintings that he did over COVID to one of our friends, and it's a really detailed young man, muscly, rippled, sort of like hold it, like doing like a little sun pose.
It was Apollo.
Apollo, right? That's what I forgot.
Okay.
But it's he does like a lot of these classic, more esoteric sort of ideas, and he's got them all hung up in the apartment. If you ever come to New York, you'll be able to see.
I do realism and surrealism and symbolic stuff. That's what I'm not doing this modern art, woke, abstract shit, or just trying to like shock value. It's like the type of art I do is definitely not cool right now in the culture. So that's part of
yours is more like Renaissance art, whereas like someone taking a couple of paint cans and throwing them against a white, background, saying, "Oh, I've painted." No, you've thrown paint, you idiot. That's all you've done.
Like Pollock did it. Art. Yeah. Jesus, Pollock, what'd you do?
Yeah, well, Pollock.
Thank you. You just took the word right out of my mouth.
You can only have, and once you do that too, there's how many other ways can you really do that? So it's like all you needed was Jackson Pollock. People trying to copy and emulate that. It's like,
I've seen
we all know who you're copying.
Some really ridiculous like Pollock derivative stuff. Yeah. Like one guy that like gets naked and like does like impressions on the canvas and like rolls around on it.
It's just a lot
of dumb shit.
We've come full circle too, back around to when we initially start talking about art, and I think the left does tend to, they put more resources into it, more focus into it, but it's producing a lot of just garbage. It's hollow. It's ideological drivel. It's browbeating. It's trying to be edgy and all that shit, but there's no depth to a lot of it.
Oteo nailed it here with the comment, totally normal for kids to go through trends and fads. And, when we did it, it was with clothing and style. Yeah. And now that there's this medicalization of gender, it's like you got to be real careful, because once they get caught up in it, there's no going back.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the part that just boggles the mind with me. It's like I want to ask some of these parents, what in the infernal regions of Dante's hell gives you the idea that you should let your child do this just to somehow either put them at ease for some angst they feel, or somehow let you sleep better at night because you feel like you're a good parent because I let my kid, go the way they want to go. No, you have the responsibility to protect your child.
You're the parent.
Yes.
And there are times, if you're a parent, and we're not parents, so I don't know, but I've been, I've had parents. There are times when it's important for the parent to not let the kid do something. And even at the expense where the kid might,
I hate you,
angry at you, say they hate you, they hope you die, whatever, you just take it. You take it because you know what you're doing is to protect the kid. And it's more important to protect your kid than it is to have them like you and be your friend.
One word: boundaries.
Boundaries.
I will make an argument. Outside, there was a book that I read probably 12, 13 years ago, written by a couple of psychologists, and it was literally, the title was Boundaries. I've made the argument to people that outside of the Bible, that's probably the most influential book I've ever read in my entire life, because finally somebody explained to me the word no is probably one of the most powerful, beautiful, and concise words in the English language that is meant for the protection of the human heart, the human soul, and the human body. There is nothing wrong with the word no. And a parent that has the kid look at them and go, I hate you. Good. I'm too stubborn to quit, too ornery to know any better, and too crazy to die. You ain't going to outlast me. I win. You lose.
Yep. And that's what these parents got to do. And look, I get it. Some of them, they're being told all these things by doctors and psychologists, and they're hearing their kids saying they want to commit suicide. And then the doctors and psychologists are saying they're probably going to do it if you don't let them do this. But at the end of the day, if you really don't wake up and put the foot down and question that stuff, I'm sorry to say you're failing as a parent.
And also now you have to be really careful depending upon what state you're in, because in certain states they will take away your child and forcibly transition them outside of your custody or control.
Stop me if I'm wrong, but Washington State, did they not pass a law recently that's like, all right, let me set this up and stop me where I'm wrong, fellas. A young child under the age of 18 comes to Child Protective Services, whatever that is in Washington State, and says, I am in the process of transitioning, but I don't think my parents are going to be supportive of me. I need help. As opposed to the old system where CPS would say, look, let's go talk to your parents. Let's work this thing out. Instead of that, oh no, your parents aren't supportive. You don't have to go home. We'll find a place for you. And then now we're separating kids from parents, and God forbid, whatever this child is going through, the door is now kicked wide open, and it probably is going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, and there's other states too. We talk a lot about Vermont. Vermont passed one of the most aggressive sort of laws in this vein, where if you come to Vermont for gender transition of a child, they will not only facilitate, they will block any sort of legal process to get the child back into the home state or back with the other parent. They will also, they created a new class of legislation called abusive legislation, where if dad, say, sues mom who absconded with the child to Vermont to return the child and, say he has got a court order from a Texas court to interrupt any sort of custody that she has, Vermont will not enforce that in Vermont. And they will also offer mom the opportunity to sue dad now in Vermont court for abusive litigation, because he is interfering with what they call protected medical treatment or protected medical activity.
Yeah, which goes back to the language topic we mentioned earlier with these
semantic games.
With language, they call this gender affirming care. They use
life-saving gender affirming care.
Oh, no.
But the word care.
But in actuality, it's genital mutilation and sterilization of minors who cannot consent to the procedure.
Yeah.
A priori, we say 18 is the age of majority. 18 is the age of consent in America, generally speaking. And so these children cannot consent to have their genitals ripped off.
And think about the type of door you're opening when you argue that they can. And
you're saying that they can consent to sexual activity and they can consent to these medical treatments. Well, if they can consent to this kind of stuff, honestly, sexual activity is not even that big of a deal compared to that.
That's I guess some would call it the slippery slope, but to me, it's not even the slippery
child
slope.
Sexual rights agenda.
It's just obvious when you're saying that kids can consent to these drastic procedures and changes to their body. You might as well just be arguing that kids can consent to anything as long as they want to do it and they feel like it's the right decision. Then just let them do it. It's like
our 18-month-old showed us, who they were. Like our son is actually our daughter because she preferred a pink toy. It's just, and the rationalizations, when you actually listen to some of these, I call them trans-housing by proxy parents. These are the ones that are not dealing with teenagers that are having confusion, but these are the ones that are transitioning their they-be, from the cradle, like literally out the gate before the child can talk and walk. The child is transgender. And it's just like, what the... Really? And these people are testifying in front of, state assemblies and Congress.
It's crazy
about how they're just so sure that their child is trans and they just wish that they had support. And, they're so scared that they'll have to move to another state if they can't get the life-saving gender affirming home. It's delusional thoughts from Fantasy fucking Island.
Yeah, I'm going to get a little abrasive here too. And
go for it.
Of Josh Slocum from Disaffected, but honestly,
give some manly candor.
Fuck these people, these doctors, these psychologists, and even some of these parents. I'm gonna say it: jail, lock them up. I don't give a shit. I think we need to open the doorway, especially for the kids who come of age and they realize that they've been harmed. We need to open that doorway and create legal avenues for them to sue
your parents,
shit out
sue
of
the providers,
sue them all. Because I don't. At that point, too, it's just like the least you can get is some freaking money to live your life a little better because they've already taken so much of it from you.
To me, I see this as basically, it's the worst kind of sexual abuse. You know, diddling is one thing, but going in there, you know, and that scars children for life. Like I've known people who were sexually abused as children. I've seen the consequences of kids, you know, 5 to 8 being introduced to sex by adults. I know how that ruins people's lives. But you know what? Like those kids like can grow up. They can understand that they had a bad experience, that their parents failed them. But they're still physically intact. They have the psychological scars that they're grappling with. But now these people are going to have physical scars as well, in addition to that. And that's so much worse. And to me, it seems like this is almost a fetish on the part of some of these surgeons and doctors.
Oh, absolutely.
Where they derive
they
derive sexual pleasure through the encouraging of children through this process. And some of them, I think, you know, go become surgeons because they enjoy. There's this one, I can't remember her name. It's like Siddhartha something god.
The
Eat the Teats lady, who's I think based in Miami. And she like makes these little cutesy TikTok videos where she's so happy that she gets to eat a teat today. And she goes on there.
You gotta be kidding me.
I am dead serious. And she's popular. She's got millions of viewers.
She's become like an influencer over doing this stuff, over removing the breasts of young girls.
She also doesn't carry malpractice insurance in the state of Florida. So if anybody out there is listening and happens to be a patient of hers and is not happy with the results, sue her.
Sue that bitch.
You have standing. Do it. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm.
Also, slightly in other good news, a major malpractice.
You mean we got some good news in this?
So this comes from Josh Slocum. I just watched his show. Slocum. I just watched his show from last night, and he was talking about how a major malpractice insurer in Australia has now issued new guidance to their 56,000 some doctors across Australia, saying that they will no longer offer malpractice insurance for anyone who gender affirming cares patients under the age of 18 because it is too risky.
There it is. There might be the way.
That's a big one.
That river of water cuts through so many different areas, because let's be honest about it. I think you're right. There is a very, I will use this word, perverse incentive, feeling, whatever, on the part of doctors to be engaging in these kind of surgeries, in part because they know, hey, somebody sues me, I got malpractice insurance. Take that security out from under their feet, and the doctors are going to be like, hey, have you really thought about this? Are you sure you want to go through with it? You know, I mean, and this kind of gets to another question that I have. I mean, I know that there are states right now that are passing laws or dealing with this. I am fully, totally, wholly in support of this. Are those laws that are being passed sufficient? I mean, no law addresses everything. I get that. But how do we start to turn this thing around? I mean, there's the legal side of it, which I think states are doing. There's the cultural side of this. How do we start turning this around from both ends to meet in the middle to the point that we can like protect our kids, protect our loved ones, protect friends, protect neighbors from, frankly, something that's being insidiously thrust upon them?
Well, I think we've been in sort of just damage control mode for like 3, 4, 5 years right now. It's just been really a matter of getting the information out. Like people weren't aware that it was happening at all. Still to this day, when I've been out with Billboard Chris, he tells what's happening to, you know, Johnny Q citizen on the street, and they are shocked and appalled that it's ongoing, that these surgeries are being performed on minors, that they're puberty blocking minors, that kids are being taken to drag shows like this. Like, you know, we're terminally online, so we've been seeing this shit for years. But the average person who, you know, has a 40-hour-a-week job, a family, natural life stress, they don't have the bandwidth to pay attention to this crap.
Agreed.
Just coming into this knowledge and awareness. And so what we can do as content creators is we can facilitate, you know, conversations like the one you're having right here that just puts the signal out there so that whoever's listening can pick it up. We can encourage people to have conversations like this in their own lives with their friends and family. definitely encourage homeschooling, you know, because a lot of the way that this gender ideology has been getting into kids has been through the public school system, has been through these activists posing as educators.
And also monitor your kids' cell phone time.
Yeah, don't give your under 16-year-old child unrestrained internet access and a smartphone. Like, that is just a bad idea.
Step one, clear out Disney.
Yeah, well, Disney is like a whole nother like. Whew.
Oh, that's a 2-hour conversation somewhere down the road, fellas. Yeah.
I mean,
we'd be happy to come back and trash Disney anytime you want.
Fellas, I know we're getting. Have you ever seen a Southern preacher or listened to a Southern preacher? Because if you ever hear a Southern preacher use the expression, "Oh, children, I've got to hurry," that means he's looked at the clock and realizes where he's at. And I know we're down about roughly 10 minutes. So I just hear, "Oh, children, we've got to hurry." So,
well, I'll reiterate everything Brent said, which I agree with. We definitely need to be having these conversations. And
agreed.
So thank you, Brian.
So thank you. And for anyone
absolutely.
This, stop playing the game. Stop playing the game. Say with your whole chest what a woman is and what a man is. Be able to define it. Don't dance around it.
And you're not being mean. You're not being cruel.
You're being truthful.
You're being truthful, and you are actually embodying real compassion. And because you're giving the harsh truth that people need to hear.
Because what it comes down to is, yes, there's all the legal stuff, but the legal stuff is only happening because of where the culture went.
Agreed.
And
it's more of a stopgap too.
And the culture, the reason why it's gotten this way is this ideology has become so pervasive that it has, not only has it caught the minds of so many people who've bought into it and believe that that gender identities are a thing and all of that. It's not just all in someone's head and that you can change your sex and blah, blah, blah. But it's also scared a lot of people into silence. They're afraid to say anything about it.
Absolutely.
They're afraid to lose their jobs because they know that that's possible. They're afraid to not be considered part of their friend groups anymore who may agree with this stuff. And, and a lot of it, they feel like it's from a place of compassion. I get that. But a lot of other people, I think, do deep down agree with us. And they know that this stuff is wrong and that it's a lie to say that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. But they are deathly afraid to say anything about it. So the way we push back, the way we turn the tide a bit is you stop playing that game and you say it. You just say it. Don't feel like you have to be forced to use pronouns, whatever. You want to use it by choice, that's fine. But if you can't say a woman is an adult human female and a man is an adult human male and define what that is, that's the litmus test right there. You should be able to say it with your whole chest.
This is basic logic. A equals A, B equals B. A does not equal B. Like basic logic. Yes. That's what these people are trying to warp.
And the more people we can get to just say it and to acknowledge that and to not be afraid to, because they have to realize too that there are people like us out there who will defend them, and you're not alone in saying this. And I think that's what happens too, is a lot of these people, they feel isolated. They don't realize how many of us actually are out there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Against this. And I think if more of them knew, they'd be a little less scared to come out and say something. And I get it. It's not everyone's battle and fight. You don't have to come on the internet and do it the way we're doing it. But in your private life, amongst the people your family, your friends, your coworkers.
Silence is complicity. Don't be
silent.
Say it.
Just say it. Just say
it. Let's turn that around on the left. Okay, you want silence to be? If silence is complicity, okay, we'll play this game.
Yep.
And I mean, just speaking for myself, I'm not married. I don't have children. My sister has 2 sons. They now have families of their own, young children. I mean, look. I'm not trying to be high and mighty and monumental here with this next comment, but in part of the reason I'm doing this is that if it were my family that were watching this live stream, I would want my nephews, their spouses, to be able to see and hear what you guys are saying, what we're all talking about, and realize, we need to start keeping our eyes open because this stuff's coming. And I'm calling. No, it's here. Exactly. The barbarians aren't at the gates anymore. They've bashed through the gates. They're running around. They're running amok inside the city. It's time to like grab battle axes and wage war. But.
Metaphorically speaking.
Yes. Please, YouTube, understand that was just meant proverbially.
We're not advocating violence.
We're not advocating violence.
Not unless they really got it coming, but there's a whole other issue.
It is a war. It is an ideological war. And
agreed.
You have to stop playing their game and speak the truth. Speak it with your whole chest. Stop dancing around it. Stop saying, well, you know, but my trans friend, like, no, I fuck your trans friend. I don't care. I don't care anymore. You know, I don't.
Your
Yes,
trans friend was
we
born
know,
female.
we know nice trans people too, and I will break bread with them any day. But when it comes down to it, is that is not going to stop me from speaking the truth. It is a mental disorder. We need to be able to admit that. And men can't become women. Women can't become men. A woman is an adult human female. A man is an adult human male. State it.
Yeah,
Stop
I
it.
mean, you know, you're born a man. You may feel like a natural woman,
Yeah.
a la Aretha Franklin, but you still a man.
Yeah.
Bless your heart, and it doesn't matter what parts you cut off
Doesn't matter.
or what parts you add. You
Yep.
still a man.
Yep.
There ain't no getting around that.
We can have, you know, we love our femi men and our femi boys, and our tomboy girls and our butch ladies.
Like, you're still a woman, you're still a man. You know,
there's nothing wrong with that, and the implication that there is, or that you need surgery and hormones.
That's part of the basis of how we got here. And look, some of that blame has to get put a bit on the conservative side too. You know, pushing those, we'll say, gender norms so heavily onto people, when the facts of the matter is not everyone is ever going to conform to those, and not everyone has. Will the majority of men and women? Yes, because biologically we have statistical predispositions that are, you know, typical to men and typical to women. But there will always be outliers from that. There will always be homosexuals. It's part of reality. And we have to be able to have that conversation and accept that some of those outliers are going to exist, instead of trying to also put them into that rigid box of this is what a man is, this is what a woman is, because that really is part of what has led to all of this stuff too. By suppressing that shit so much, that person is like, well, maybe life would just be easier for me if I was just a woman. That little gay boy who's like, I don't feel right. I don't feel like I'm a boy. I'm not a boy enough. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm in the wrong body. Maybe I was supposed to be a girl. That's where this shit comes from.
Yeah, you know, it's been a slippery slope that's gone. Yeah, there's a very slippery slope that's gone downhill and led to a lot of where we are, and I don't disagree with it. And one of the other things, and this is a topic for another day, and yes, you fellas are coming back to my front porch. I don't know when, but you are welcome back on anytime you want to. You guys got something on your mind, you get a hold of me. But language, it just infuriates me to no end how it is, and I've never understood the why, how the left takes language, somehow makes it their own, takes a word, its definition, decouples the two, takes the definition, plays around with it, makes it whatever they need it to be, recouple it to the word, and now the word means something that was never intended. They just get away with it.
Here's a good example of that, probably their biggest example over the last few decades, or last decade or so: racism. It is no longer.
Oh God, yes.
It is no longer just, you know, a hatred or discrimination against someone for their skin color, no matter what skin color you are, meaning by that definition, anyone of one race can be racist towards anyone of another race. Now it is power plus privilege. In order for it to be true racism, you need to have some kind of institutional state power that makes you superior, plus your skin color. Well, by that definition, almost everyone in China is racist, because that is a predominantly Chinese society. And if you go there, you're going to have some...
also, newsflash, China don't like black people.
Yeah, but that's my point, is just like, it's normal in China to be Chinese.
China don't like Koreans. China don't like, you know, Western Asians. There's a lot of racism.
China don't like China. Let's just get down to it. They've killed a hell of a lot of their own people.
My point is, in China...
racism. Problem.
In China, Chinese people have more institutional power in the government because they're
right. But you don't even do that. Don't
Yeah.
even go there. Don't let them change the definitions of these words. Racism means hatred against a group of people because they come from a race that you don't like. It means prejudging people by the color of the skin or their ethnic background. Yeah. Like, these are the definitions of words. Do not cede ground. Don't even play the game.
Well, I'm hypothetically stating that as a joke. Like, I'm not like playing.
Sure, but my point is just like, don't give them any ground. Call their BS out when you hear it, because they do this all the time. They lie all the time about everything. And their favorite game are these semantic sleights of hands where they say something that seems reasonable, but then you realize that they've changed the definition of half the words and they don't actually mean what normal truth-speaking people actually, interpret the phrase as. So it's constant doublespeak. Oh, hi, Don.
Me
Thank
thinking
you.
I look as cool as Brently.
That's fine.
You don't even have your glasses on right now.
Yeah, it's all good. But this is like my big thing is that I see this all the time on Twitter. They lie by doing these semantic twists. And they do a lot of confession by projection. So they accuse people of the thing that they are guilty of. Yeah. So when they accuse somebody of being racist, for example, that's generally an admission that they have particular feelings about white people per se. Or when they accuse you of sexism against women, it's because they have particular feelings about men as a group. So, and when they say stuff about, gays or other sexual minorities, it's because they don't like heterosexuals. They don't like heterosexuality. They created this whole word called heteronormativity in order to degrade the idea that it is normal for a man and a woman to come together and make babies. Like, yes, guess what? That's normal. And that's actually how the species continues into the future.
That's kind of how you're here.
Like, they want to make it so that everybody is, under the LGBTQIA plus K umbrella.
Everyone is queer. And that's
you don't want that. Yeah. That's chaos. And that means nobody's making babies that are going to be healthy enough to sustain future societies. Like, well, people don't realize what they're messing with here. This is fundamental stuff.
And, as some gay dudes here, we are big advocates of the traditional family. We encourage that, actually.
Make babies.
And it's not a cool thing amongst the gays to have that position, but to me, it's just a logical, rational position. Just because I can't have that doesn't mean that I'm going to shit on the entire normal way of being that humans operate under. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. Traditional families are a good thing. We want to have the family unit to be intact. It doesn't mean that the gay and lesbian family member doesn't serve a purpose in the family, or aunts, uncles, and all that stuff. And the adoption topic is a whole nother topic that we don't even have to get
Rob's
into.
Right. They either run away from the conversation or they start ad hominem. This is
or they'll never debate you. I can't and you guys can probably speak to this probably as much or better than anybody else. Have you found it fascinating that when someone on the right invites someone onto the left for a conversation, the person on the left will never accept the invitation? Almost 9 times out of 10, they'll never do it.
It's the difference there is that you could have a good liberal versus conservative debate if both people in that conversation are there in good faith. And good faith means that they are willing to honestly and openly discuss the idea with no sort of prejudged outcome of what they think is going to come out of it.
Yeah.
The leftists today use words as weapons. They can fool and corner and corral you with these thought weapons, these semantic switches, the implication that you're racist or that you're morally inferior or whatever. They don't use words in order to communicate ideas. They use words as weapons because they're trying to bully you. They're trying to corral you. They're trying to force you. This is force. It's conversational force. They're trying to force you to obey them. Because to them, conversations and debate is just a power dynamic. It's just in order to get you to come over to their side and say what they want you to say.
So there's more to it than that as well. And part of it is the left seems to operate under the rules of guilt by association. That's part of it. So if one of their own goes off and talks with us or with Matt Walsh or someone else who doesn't fit into their ideology, they view that as they're platforming us. They're bringing attention onto us. And this is the excuse they'll use, like, oh, well, I'm not going to go talk to blah, 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 because I don't want to platform him. I don't want to give attention to his dangerous ideas. Part of it is also they don't want to be seen to be associated with those people, even if it's on, the grounds of disagreeing with them in the debate. Just to be associated with them at all, they'll get cast out of the cool club of their own.
The Hive.
Yeah,
there's a pollster that I follow named Richard Barris who came up with a term for it better than I could ever think of. The way he likens the left, it's like a hive.
It's the Borg.
The Borg. The worker bees all think the same, do the same, act the same, look the same, walk the same, talk the same, everything. And if you deviate from that, oh my gosh, the hive can't stand that notion.
Yeah.
You must be suppressed. You must be silenced. You can't deviate. And that's where the left is. They are a monolithic Borg. We will assimilate you and you'll be happier for it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I don't feel like being assimilated. Thank you very much.
Now they're not even giving the children the choice.
Yeah. They shun their own.
Yeah. It's just, there's this giant assumption too that if you're a minority of some sort, you absolutely have to agree with them. You have to vote Democrat.
Oh, I know.
You have to. And if you don't, you're a traitor. You're Uncle Tom. You're a self-hating.
There's the racism. Yeah. Right there's the racism.
It comes out.
Yeah. They hate, and those it's hypocritical too, because they'll say shit like, elevate minority voices, listen to minority voices, make space for minority voices. Mm-hmm. Just not those minority voices, not those.
Bingo.
Not those ones.
Yeah.
So,
well, fellas, I am holding you longer than I need to, and you have been, bless you. You two are fantastic. We must do this again sometime. And stop it. No, like I said, you guys, if you got something on your mind, get a hold of me. You want to come back on the porch and talk about it? The door is open. I'll pull out a couple of chairs for you, and we'll sit down and hash the thing out. How about it?
Sounds great.
Down. And if you ever, if you have something to talk about and you want to invite us back on, and we'll have to have you on Dangerous Rhetoric as well. And we'll have a conversation, get Brian's story and where Brian comes from, and have a little more focused conversation on you, less on us.
All right. Well, before we go, now let me do like the official YouTuber thing. Tell everybody where they can find you. Give them all your social media. Let's get you guys, out there a little bit more, as much as we can. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they listen to your work and what you're talking about?
I am on Twitter under Dan Delafe, DANDELAFE, and it's the same handle on my Instagram. You can find me on there as well. And if you want to find all of the podcast content, meaning including the stuff that we had to remove from YouTube, just go to our website, dangerousrhetoric.com. All of it is hosted on there through Rumble. And obviously subscribe to us on YouTube as well under Dangerous Rhetoric. And then the Dangerous Rhetoric Twitter is at Dangerous Rhet.
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 Because you couldn't fit the whole thing.
Yeah. And then Brent, you can tell them your stuff.
I'm on Twitter at Kapopolis, which is confusing. But if you go to at Dangerous Rhet, there's a link right in the profile there to find it. I'm on TikTok as, what is the TikTok? I think it's Brently now. Same thing on Instagram. I do short little 60 to 90 second news blips, updates on major stories.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok too, but I don't do any politics on there.
Daniel shows his little I
put workout videos and like drum videos.
If you're into that kind of stuff.
Well, TikTok, honestly, I think it's the worst place to talk about politics.
It is, but the kids are on there, and
That's true.
I'm not going to seed ground. I'm just going to use whatever tools I have available.
That's true.
And I like doing 60-second summary videos for social media. It's a different, sort of wheelhouse than this, which is much more long form and nuanced, where it's more just very focused, short, and designed to impart a little bit of contrarian narrative into the hive mind. It's like my fun little favorite thing to do. So it's on TikTok, it's Brently, and Instagram, it's Brently, all one word.
It's underscore Brently on Instagram.
Okay, maybe that's what it is.
That thing that you do, it's the underscore thingy,
Yeah, the underscore thingy.
Well, fellas, thank you so much. Hang around for a few minutes. We'll say some proper goodbyes. For everybody who's been watching, thank you so much for stopping by Chatting on the Porch. You have made this my guests have made this a wonderful first experience. Guests out there watching made this a wonderful first experience. It's on YouTube, it's on Rumble, it's been on Twitter. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we love you, and have a good night.
Cheers,
Cheers everyone.